Well, hello, and welcome to Empowering Women podcast. This podcast is designed to help women build their confidence, their self esteem, to educate, to inspire, and most importantly, to build your faith and trust in God. So, before we start, I'm going to read us a little poem that I wrote for this episode. The poem is called Once Upon a Time. So, once upon a time, children chased kites, running across the field beneath the open skies, sweat dripping from their faces, climbing trees and getting bruises. They found joy in the simple way of life. But now, screen is all you see. Fingers swiping as if their lives depended on it. A picture posted, a moment shared, waiting, wondering who has cared. One more selfie, one more pose, one more trend that everyone knows. Searching for validation, searching for applause from strangers that couldn't care less. Forgetting that heaven already testified that you were called with a purpose. They scroll through lives that seem so grand, comparing their dreams, which they barely understand. The louder the world begins to shout, the quieter their hearts become with doubt. They're not just chasing life, they're confused, searching for identity, not just collecting followers. They too long to belong. So, parents, grandparents, mentors, aunties, uncles, friends, may our voices rise above the trends. Tell them they are beautiful. Tell them they are deeply known even before they ever held a phone. Don't allow this world to steal their joy. Teach them courage and strength are not measured by views that disappears tomorrow. Teach them beauty is borrowed from a strain that profits from their sorrow. Remind them character outlives popularity. Kindness outshines celebrity. Integrity lasts longer than a viral moment, and purpose is greater than performance. For every boy and girl who is marvelously and wonderfully made, a masterpiece no algorithm can create, no amount of likes can define your worth, no platform can assign your value. Children, young people, adults, may you seek truth over trends, purpose over popularity, faith over fear, and love over likes. Because when the screen goes black and every notification fades away, the greatest question will be how many people followed me today? But instead, you should ask yourself, did I honor my parents? Did I love? Did I serve? Did I obey? Did I become the person God created me to be? Thank you so much.
Yes, beautiful. Mm.
Thank you. So today we have a very special guest with us. And before I introduce her, I'll just tell you the title of our show today, it's Raising Strong Children in a Digital World. We live in a digital world where computers and technology shape nearly everything we do each day, from how we work and communicate to how we stop and learn. We do not just want to talk about getting the kids off the phone, but we want, to kind of focus on positive connections, boundaries, emotional health, identity, values, and safety. So, welcome to Empowering Woman Podcast, Miss Abigail Bailey. Let me not spoil your name.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. And as I said before, today we'll be having an important conversation about one of the greatest challenges that many parents are
Right.
facing raising healthy, confident, and well grounded children in a digital world. And it's not going to get better, it's only going to get, more advanced and worse.
Right.
So tell us about yourself. I know that you went to Borden College where you received your
Yes.
bachelor's. Then you went to Sacred Heart University where you got your master's degree, and now you're a licensed master's social
Yeah.
worker. So if you would tell us about yourself and just a little bit about you.
Of course. Yeah. So, as you said, I did get my bachelor's in social work at Gordon College, which is located in Massachusetts. And then I went to Sacred Heart University in Connecticut to get my master's in social work. And I've been working as a licensed master social worker, at LMSW for short, in New York State since the beginning of 2021. So I started during the COVID years, and there's been a lot of challenges that we've seen with social media and other things alike with children. My experience primarily is with working with children and young adults, but I've honestly worked with people from as young as 4 all the way to, I think my oldest client at one time was maybe in her late 80s. So I've really seen a
Mm.
diverse group of people throughout my career, even though it's been short. I've had a privilege of really working with a lot of different diverse people. And right now, working with children primarily, I'm working with ages 5 to 21 currently.
Oh, beautiful. What age group do you prefer? For me, I don't have a preference.
Okay.
I think I prefer adults, really, but I don't really have a preference. So, what's your preference?
My preference might be adults too, and specifically maybe more so adults between 18 and I would say 60. And
Yeah.
I say that because my previous position, that's pretty much the primary population I saw. And I found that I saw the most, uh, I guess, progress with them. I was able to really get into like the meat of the work. I think working with children has its own benefits, but it has a lot of challenges because of all the other people you have to work with too. It's not just them versus when you're working with adults,
Yeah.
you really can focus on, just them and what they need to work on. So, yeah.
Absolutely, especially if it's the foster care system.
Yeah, I don't
There's
have
the
as much experience with that. I can only imagine how difficult that must be.
I have been in every realm of social work, so
Yeah.
that one is no joke. From the court to the lawyers to the foster parents to the biological parents to other, entities that are out there. But
Yeah.
anywho,
Yeah. That's another ballpark. Yeah.
yes, yes. But what are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing children and families face today?
And in general or in relation to technology?
Uh, any way you want to answer it, you can answer it in both
Yeah.
lights,
I would say,
generally. And
in general, I think I see the most concerns like parents come to me with for their children is really around behaviors, right? Like, I think we're seeing a lot
Mhm,
of extreme behaviors in kids, especially younger kids than usual, right? Like, I might have a
mhm,
4 or 5 year old who's cursing at people, throwing
mhm.
tantrums left and right. Like, parents are not sure how to respond, teachers don't know how to respond. So
Yeah,
behaviors are really increasing, like behaviors that are concerning. I also think, as it relates to technology and social media, we are seeing people maybe. I think kids these days have a lot of access to information that maybe kids 20 years ago didn't have access to, and I think it
yes,
comes with a lot of different stressors for them that they maybe would not have had to face without social media and with all that access. So, they're always aware of what their peers are doing. They're always able to compare themselves to someone else's life. They're hearing about all that's going on in the world. It's just all this stuff all at once, constantly, every day. So I think those are some of the main challenges I'm seeing parents bring to me. Yeah.
yeah. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
We didn't have social media, years ago,
Yeah.
and kids always had behavioral
Yeah.
issues, as we know, depending on what your diagnosis
Yeah.
is. Do you think, like, now that social media is such a big part of our everyday life, that that is even making the behaviors worse? Like, it's attributing to,
Yes, in some ways. And I would say not necessarily just social media, because if I'm thinking of the younger kids, maybe like 5, 6, I think it's the screen time. Like, I think they are, a lot of them on these devices all day. And there's these really overstimulating content that they're in. They're getting all of these fast responses that you can't get in real life. Like, if they want to watch something else, they just click on
yeah,
something else. They don't have to wait. So, yes, I do think technology and the internet in general can be a part of what's attributing to the behaviors being worse. Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So how could we protect our children without becoming disconnected from them? What do you think?
Yeah. And you mean like disconnected from social media specifically, or just disconnected from
So
technology?
from just okay, so with social media,
Mm,
kids are like throwing
yeah.
tantrums. Some of the children. So if a parent should go and say, "Hey, set some boundaries. It's time you put this down, and you do something else." How would they go about doing this without really getting the kids? They're going to get upset anyhow.
Yeah.
But how could they, you know, do it in a way that would not disconnect the parent? That they're always in an uproar because that
Yes.
happens. How could they do it in a way that they're not disconnected from the child?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think that's a concern a lot of parents have, right? I think that's why it's hard to set those limits, because they don't want to
Yeah,
deal with the tantrum and the yelling and all the things. I think consistency is a huge part of it. And I think it's more of like,
yeah,
it's never going to be, I think, a fast response, because, like you said, they will be upset, especially if it's been a little while that they haven't had any limits set. Like, a kid is now expecting that they can have access to this device for how long they want to, or whenever they want to. So I think oftentimes starting small and staying consistent. So I know a lot of parents during the school year, in the school week, they say no devices at all until weekends, right? And so I know a lot of parents, that's something they had to introduce slowly. Or maybe they'll say, if you do all your homework, you can get your device for 30 minutes. You kind of try to find a way to make it work as a reward. But I
mhm,
would say going slow and setting clear expectations and being consistent. Because I think a lot of
mhm.
times parents may want to, they have the best intention, but unfortunately, maybe sometimes they do end up giving into the request, and the kid can sometimes not really know what to expect. And that might even cause a bigger reaction if they think they should expect something else than what the parent gives them.
Absolutely, absolutely. What does it mean to raise a child in today's? What does it mean to raise a child today in this digital world? What does it mean?
And you mean like, yeah, what does it mean? I mean, I don't know. I think it's hard to say because I'm not a parent, right? So that's a caveat to this, right? This is just
You're
my
speaking from your
perspective.
social work
Yes. From
perspective.
my social work perspective, I would say, especially for kids born in the era where there hasn't been a time that they've known without these iPads and devices, like they don't have a previous time before this. I can only imagine how difficult it is for the kid and the parent, because they probably have a parent who, one, wasn't raised the same way, so they don't have the understanding themselves to understand why their kid thinks the way that they do or how they interact with these devices. I also think there's still so much research that's being done and coming out on how social media and how technology is affecting kids. So we're really learning all
Yes,
as a society.
yes.
So I,
Mhm.
I think what it is you'd really have to learn a balance, just like I think with everything else, right? You'd have to learn a way to obviously not keep your child shielded from it, because you can't. If they go to school, they're gonna have to be around devices. They hang out with other kids, the kids are gonna have devices. So you can't avoid it altogether, but limit setting, I think, is so important. And the earlier you do it, the better, I would say. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think honestly, parents should not be giving babies iPads
Yeah.
because if you start them out from young, it's going to be hard to take it away. Have you ever seen the little ones that are throwing tantrums on
Yeah.
because iPad is being taken away? I'm like,
Yeah.
some parent probably would say raising children today in this digit, it's like hellish.
Yeah. And it's so hard. I think too, like sometimes parents might think, all right, I'll give you the iPad just to distract you for a little bit. But then, yeah, it becomes this thing that the kid now is like attached to almost. And then the parent
Cannot be
becomes
a baby.
dependent. Yeah.
Yeah. Cannot be a babysitter.
Yeah. It can.
Cannot.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do
Yeah.
you think technology is changing the way children communicate?
Hmm.
That's a big one. Develop relationships and see themselves.
Yeah, I would say to start with communication, again, going back to especially the kids that have been raised completely with devices now, so maybe kids born within the last 10 years or so, I think what we're noticing is there's just maybe less social skills, right? So I think kids are still
Yeah.
kids. From my observation, when you see kids at the park, they still play. They're still,
Hmm.
most kids can still do that, right?
Yes.
However, maybe when it comes to like social difficulties, I think kids now have another outlet. Like if I don't really have any friends or if I don't talk to anybody, I could just be on my phone. I don't have
Yeah.
to, like, I can avoid that discomfort or have to push myself to really learn or try to be more social. I think in terms of how it changes how they view themselves, I think going back to social media, because people can see so much of other people's lives, and I would say not really the real life that they're living, but the life that they're able to edit and put out into the world. Unfortunately, especially for younger kids that have not developed their identity yet, and they're very impressionable, they can start to see their lives as not good enough. They can see all the stuff they don't have. They can see all the ways that they are not living their life in a way that seems as enjoyable. I also see unrealistic expectations, I think, happening with some kids and teenagers, right? Because they'll see these kids that have like these YouTube channels and they think, well, I could just start a YouTube channel. I don't have to go to school. I don't have to go to college. I can just, make money that way. So there's a lot of ways that it distorts reality, I think,
It does.
because they spend so much time in this online world and not in the real world always. So
It does. And they're not really able to communicate
yeah,
intelligently like they should.
yeah,
Because having a phone, even texting, as you and I know, it can be so informal,
yeah,
right? And I think that breaks relationship. It people get upset and get tight because there's
yeah,
no communication.
right.
Everything is so I
Yes,
think that even separate people from really building genuine relationships. How can you build a genuine relationship through a device?
I know. And I think what's sad is sometimes kids will feel those internet connections as more real than their real life ones. Because I've seen that happen where, especially with teenagers, they're on, I think there's a really popular app called Discord, where I think it usually was for kids that used to play video games, but now it's like a chat room. And maybe you guys are chatting about a TV show you like. And those people become your friends. You video chat with them, you talk to them about everything. You don't ever meet them in real life, but you're talking to these people and you feel this connection, right? You're almost having all the same experiences as if you would in real life, but it's not real, right? Like you can't go and tangibly touch the person. The person is not seeing you in your day-to-day life the way someone else would, but it can distort that reality and it can cause a lot of, I think, emotional difficulties for kids and teenagers.
It
Yeah.
does. I call it fake friends. I was in a class and a young mom was talking about her child, and the child had a friend on social media, and I think the child was trying to break away. Don't remember the
Mm,
story clearly. And this kid kept telling this kid, if you break off the friendship, I'm going to commit suicide.
oh.
It's a good thing the mom, she was somebody that was, very attentive. So she caught it. She saw the message and
Right.
brought her child up and sit the child down,
Mm,
trying to explain to the child, you cannot let someone else have you feeling guilt ridden because now
right.
he's not going to want to break off because he's going to believe in his heart, if I break off and this kid's commits, it's going to be my fault.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's dangerous. It can be very
It's
dangerous.
can be
Not to
very
mention
dangerous.
the fact that, I mean, I know there's some of the settings that have video chatting, but there could be adults that are acting like kids talking to kids, right? That's been a long term issue with some of these online communication platforms. And I think that's great, like you said, that parent was on top of it. I think more parents need to be a lot more involved with what their kids are doing online. Yeah.
Absolutely. 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 And since our kids are growing up around social media, it's not going anywhere,
Yeah.
right? gaming, AI,
Yeah.
all these different online things,
Yeah.
communication that we have, it's not going anywhere. So
Right.
we have to really be invested in them and
Yeah.
speak, talk till
Right. Yeah.
just keep talking. They're not going to like it, but you just have to keep speaking. And not every parents, to be honest with you, talk a lot to the
Yeah.
kids,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and you have to talk to your kids.
Yeah.
Um, what concerns do you think parents should pay attention to without becoming fearful?
Hmm. I think the amount of screen time is important to pay attention to. I know that's like a big word people say, but it is really important, right?
That is
Like,
important.
yeah, how much time are they actually spending with technology, on these devices?
What sites
Um,
you're on?
what sites they're on, things like that. That's really important. So just the general time that's being spent on it. And then I would say also the content. Like some things that I see kids say that they watch or do, it's like, why are you doing that at 6 or 7? Right. So like you said, maybe talking to your kids more, like what are they watching? What games are they playing? What are you letting them being exposed to? Things like that. I would also say in most cases, like for certain age ranges, and I think Roblox did this recently because of that issue, is that I think some ages they shouldn't be able to talk to people online. That should not even
Absolutely.
be a feature, right? So seeing if you can block that access or being aware of what access your kid has to talk
Mhm,
to strangers pretty much online.
mhm.
Um, I'm trying to think of other things. I would also pay attention to um, how much your kid is seeming to be impacted by social media. And I know that's a little bit harder. That's vague. You'd have to really know your kid. But if you're
I
seeing any
hope
changes,
they do.
I
I
I hope they do.
I
But you would
hope.
be surprised, like
Yeah,
how
I
some changes
know.
are so
I
subtle.
know.
Some changes are so subtle, right? But if you're starting to notice, you have, let's say, a kid that was, okay with being one way for a while, like maybe they're more casual, they don't really care to dress up, but all of a sudden they're like obsessed with their appearance, right? And they won't go certain places if they're not looking this perfect way. Like those are things to maybe just pay attention to. Like, are
Yes,
their behaviors changing?
right.
Um, Things like that, I think, are things parents should maybe look at. And again, it's not to cause fear, but just to be aware of, mindful of, checking in with them on.
Very
Yeah.
good. Thank you. So, how do you think social media can affect a child's self-esteem and
Mm,
identity?
yeah. Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, right? I think for self-esteem, if a child already doesn't have the best self-esteem, because if you think about so many things impact self-esteem, right? How they already feel about themselves and how other people maybe speak to them or how people treat them. Kids can internalize that, and that can affect their self-esteem.
Mhm.
But I would say social media in a particular way, because you are putting yourself out there,
Yeah.
right? People are seeing parts of your life that maybe even if you're not close to them, they're maybe knowing things about you that they wouldn't know without social media. There's this sense of like, if you're not appreciated and loved, or if you're not celebrated by these people, there can be a sense of feeling like you're not enough, right? You
Right.
don't get as much likes or comments as someone else does. That might make you feel like, okay, is something wrong with me? Do I not look as good? Um,
Validation, huh?
yeah, yeah. And I think the comparison part can be the hugest difficulty. I think for all ages, right? But
Mhm.
especially for a kid who's still learning the world, right? If you feel like my life does not look as good, or I don't have the things that someone else has, that can impact how you feel about yourself.
Mhm.
I think in terms of identity is a huge thing for teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Especially, but it's a huge thing now. I think people are really trying to identify with things. They love labels. They want to be identified as something.
Mhm.
And I think because of that, I do see a lot of kids that are rushing to identify themselves with certain diagnoses, even. That's something that's been a big
Really?
thing. Yes. I'll have teenagers
Wow.
tell me that they have ADHD, they have eating disorders, all these things. They'll come to me and tell me this
You're
because
self-diagnosing.
self diagnosing at like 13, 14, 15, like really young,
What is
really young.
happening?
Yes, yeah. So, and I think it's just there's all this information online, and some of it is helpful, but a lot of it is just way too much information, or misinformation, and people just kind of take that in. And especially teenagers, again, they want to identify with something. So I struggle with this, so that means I have this disorder, and
Yeah,
that kind of defines me. And that can be dangerous,
it
right? To
is. It
find
is.
your identity in a mental health diagnosis that you have or don't have, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's just a lot of the information out there can affect how people kind of view themselves in the end. Yeah.
And I'm wondering too, even though they could go online and self-diagnose, sometimes, sometimes we have parents too that label our children.
Yeah.
So that is
Yes.
something, I would tell. I know maybe all parents sometimes get upset and frustrated, and you may say things out of
Yeah.
turn that you should not say. But,
Right.
that's something that we really have to pay attention to, not
Right.
calling our kids names, like label
Yeah.
kids, because when you label
Yeah.
them, sometimes they really take it to heart and they believe it.
They do. Yeah.
You
That's
know,
very true.
you're the
Yes.
parent, you're the first community, and you're looking up
Yeah.
to you. So if you're going to tell me, oh, you have ADHD, and I'm pretty sure there are people that do it,
Yes.
bipolar,
Yes.
you're this,
Yes.
you're that. So if I tell you this often enough, you're going to believe it. So parents, please, let's
Right.
stop labeling our kids. We know they can go on social media, yes, as Abby is saying, and diagnose themselves. But sometimes I strongly believe that people are also labeling their children, and you're taking that to heart and running with it.
Absolutely. Yes. That's actually a very good point. 'Cause I've seen that happen in my office all the time, right? I think
Mhm.
just last week I had a parent say that her daughter's bipolar and she's manipulating her
Okay?
because she's frustrated with her behavior. And so, yes, parents do have to be careful of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think happens when children begin measuring their worth by likes, right? Followers and comments. What do you think about that?
It can become dangerous, right? It can go, I think, anywhere from the range of being like, all right, they might have a false sense of self, or they might feel sad about it, to extreme measures of some kids have felt suicidal, right? Because they feel like, what, people don't like me this much, right? Or there's
Mhm,
even the opposite side. Let's say it's a kid that's very well liked on social media, they have all these followers.
mhm.
If it's disconnected with how they feel about their real life, it can cause like a bit of like a dissociation, right? It's like,
Right.
online I'm this happy person with this perfect life, and
Mhm.
people expect that of me. But maybe I'm really struggling and nobody knows, right? I think either way, whether it's a negative or a positive in terms of how much interaction you get on social media, if you put your whole identity, or like you measure your self-worth off of that, that's just so fickle, because it can change and it's not necessarily real life or how people really feel about you. um, yeah.
I like that because one thing that people don't realize, feelings change
Yeah, they
from
do.
1 minute to the next. It's like a young
Absolutely.
girl or a young boy, they like someone today. Maybe tomorrow
Yeah.
they won't. So,
Yeah.
it's so important that we educate them and we try to, guide them in the right direction, because feelings does not last.
It doesn't. That's very true.
Changes from one moment to the next. And we have to teach our children this. It's
It's
good to
very
have
true.
feelings, it's okay, but it changes.
Right. Especially when you're a teenager, right? Like how you feel about something at 13 may not feel that way the year or two later. It does change a
Absolutely.
lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. One thing I know I instill a lot in my grandson, that you have friends in elementary school, but those friends, you're going to change friends. You get to middle
Yeah.
school, you're not going, you may have one or two. You go to high school, forget it. Because everybody, so you cannot think that, you need XYZ or so, because
Right.
you're going to grow apart, right? You're not going to have these people in your life all the time. So it's something I teach them all the time. They'll be here for a season. They might not
Right.
be down the line in your future. So
Right.
his things do change, right?
Yeah. That is very true.
Things do
And that is
change.
so hard, I think. I think that's in general hard, right? Because
Yeah,
naturally some people might become more attached or
yeah,
whatever else. But yeah, that's a very good point.
yeah. How can parents recognize when social media is becoming too? No, you already answered that. I won't ask you that again. You did talk about that a little bit. But what should a parent say when a child says, everyone else has it, so why can't I? What do you think they should tell
Mm.
the kid?
In terms of social media,
Everyone has a phone.
oh,
Everyone has
everybody's
a
a phone. Yeah.
device. Why can't I have one? Why are you
Oh, that's
taking mine away from me?
Yeah, that is a hard one, right? And I think that's an age old for other things. You can replace it with other things back in time, right? But obviously, there's the old school saying of, it's my house, my rules, or I
Yeah.
don't care what your friends are doing. This is me. I actually think my vote would be to explain that the reason you're doing it is, to protect them, or it's not age appropriate. I think parents should really have that conversation, because I think, unfortunately, with some kids, especially kids today, they can find other ways, right? Maybe you don't give them a phone, but maybe at school their friend lets them share their phone with them. You have to kind of maybe have conversations about why you're wanting them to wait for that, or why you're withholding that from them. And they may still be upset and not understand it, but I think that's better than just saying a a no, a hard stomp no without any explanation.
You should
Yeah.
explain everything.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's the ignorance of folks why they
Yeah.
think, oh, I'm the adult, you're the
Yeah.
child. No, 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 no. I'll give you a perfect example. I was watching a show with my family, and the young man said, do you believe in God? He was like, he believed in something, but he doesn't know if he believed in God, because when he was younger, they would just take him to church and nobody would explain anything. Nobody told him who this
Mhm.
God is. Nobody. And I thought about it. And I said,
Yeah.
that is, not condoning that and then he doesn't, but I think he's confused. Okay, he's not
Yeah.
sure if he does or if he doesn't. But his main
Right.
point was, nobody explained anything to me. It's
Right.
just like, you have to explain things to your children. Just
Right.
hey,
Right.
I'm taking the phone away from you now, right? Because an education is vitally important. You cannot stay
Right.
on your phone 8 hours, 6 hours. Let's
Yeah.
have some 1 hour here, another hour
Right.
reading, and explain to them why. Because when you
Yeah.
get older, you're going to need a job, a good job, right? You're going to need to
Right.
feed yourself. You're going to need to pay your bills. And sitting on
Yeah.
the phone all day is not going to allow you to do these things. So you should
Right.
explain things to your children. And don't think because they're children,
Mhm.
you should not. They need to,
Yes.
stay in their place,
Right.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, because I think also what can happen when parents do that, let's say they don't explain things, whether it be with the devices or anything else, is when the kid gets older, right? Like maybe an older teenager, and they're like, oh, you need to be more responsible. You need to be able to set things aside for yourself. But you didn't really teach them how to do that, right? You just kind of maybe told them things, but you didn't explain or show them. And I think that is a challenge that comes up later on if you don't properly explain things to your kids. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my next question for you, what signs might indicate that a child is struggling emotionally because of what they're experiencing online?
Mm. Yeah, and that's, I think, going back to what I was saying before about those subtle signs, right? Because there might be some extreme ones, but it's usually pretty subtle at first. So I would say, how are they? I guess the first thing would be, is their time on social media changing? Whether it's more or less. Are you noticing that? What are they saying to you about social media? Do they ever talk to you about it? And if they used to talk to you a lot about it, and all of a sudden they're not talking to you about it, that's might be something
Mhm.
to pay attention to. Or if you try to ask them more questions about it, or if you're noticing that you're putting limits around it and they're getting really upset and you're not really sure as to why, and they can't explain things to you, those are things to start to, like, maybe look at. In terms of emotions, I think obviously if you're noticing mood changes, like maybe they're more irritable, maybe they're more sad,
Yeah.
there's more anxiety around things. If there's, again, I think the big thing that usually comes up is the perception, or how they're, I guess, worried about how they'll be perceived by others. Is there like this huge obsession with their looks or how they might appear? Or is it the opposite? Do they start not caring about how they look? Do they want to avoid certain people? Do they not want to go to school, because a lot of times the issues on social media do happen with other kids they know at school and in real life. So those are some things I would say: mood changes, and if there's any suspicious behavior around you're asking about things with social media, if they seem like hesitant or more reserved or quiet than usual about it.
Even their habits of eating. I,
Yeah.
I have so many stories because a parent had asked me if I could talk to her child because he was doing very well and then his grades start declining.
Mm.
And she said he is just stuck on social media. And when I spoke to him too, didn't even remind me of the kid that, I knew, even though he's far away and talking to him on the phone.
Mm.
He had 106 or something pages to read before school starts. I don't know what time they go back. And I said to him, okay, I'm going to give you a week for you to complete the book because I know you can. 106 or something is not that bad, right? And
Mm.
give him a few other little things that I think, he should do. When I called him back, he only read 39 pages 7 days later. Then the book went
Mm.
dead.
Yeah.
I called her. I
Yeah.
said, I was speaking to him, but the phone went dead, so I'm not sure, what happened, and I haven't spoken to him since. But I'm telling you, it is such an epidemic. This
Yeah.
social media is like a disease that spreads like a disease. Hook the brain, right?
Right. It is. And it's changed a lot. Like when I think about what social media was like maybe 10, 15 years ago,
Yes,
it was time consuming then, but I think the way it's literally set up now, it's set up to literally keep you scrolling. Like there's so much information, there's so much content. It's not even a lot of stuff that are just other people's lives. Like it's
right.
news stories, it's videos, it's all these things that are just like zooming you into what you're watching and you have to stay on it. That's how it's created now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, very addictive. And I'll just share one
Yes.
more thing. I'm not sure if you ever heard of because I was shocked when I heard this. So the same young lady was shared with me that she babysits, and the child she called the child for dinner, but the child did not come. When she went
Mm.
into the room, she smelled this foul smell, and she said, "What is this?" Only to realize that the kid defecated on himself. He was so stuck on the phone and would not move from the phone.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I have not heard of something like that happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how
That's
serious,
significant.
that is very significant. That's
Yeah.
how serious this thing can get. And to me, that would be something mental.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you don't realize that you did that, or if you did realize later you couldn't control it or you didn't want to even put it down for 2 seconds that's a problem. Yeah.
I'll jump to this next question. When do you think parents should probably seek professional help? Especially like what we're talking about now. When do you
Yeah.
think they should decide that, I think I should get some help for my child?
I think when it's starting to affect their behaviors or their like, so for example, you mentioned about like the homework in school. Like if they're not able to keep up with
Mhm.
homework, if they're on the phone in class, even, right? They're not focusing in class because of
Yeah,
social media. If at home you cannot get them to stop being on the phone, even if you set limits on it, they're finding ways to break it. They're finding ways to like get into it somehow. If it's really damaging their mood at all, like if they're showing signs of depression, if they're seeming anxious, yeah, I think anytime it's starting to impact functioning, like day-to-day functioning in any sort of moderate to more severe way, and you're not able to change it with like simple modifications, I think that's a time to start looking for some professional help.
absolutely, absolutely. So how can parents create an environment where children feel safe telling them about
Mm.
something disturbing they saw or experience
Right.
online? Because a lot of times, the way we operate with our children, they will not come to us and share anything. And that
Yeah,
has to
that's
stop.
very true. Yeah, I think being trying your best to be a non-judgmental listening ear, right? And so what that means is they might tell you something, and let's say the way that they saw it is something that you wouldn't want them to do. So let's say, for example, they were on a website you told them not to be on,
Yeah.
right? Instead of immediately saying, well, why were you on there anyways, right? Trying to take a second to really focus on what they're telling you, and respond to that first, and then maybe talk about things that they could do in the future to maybe prevent that. So I think being non-judgmental period is really important, like just listening, even if you don't agree with it or something doesn't sound right to you, just really trying to listen. And even if you don't understand it, right, let's say it's something that wouldn't bother you as a parent but it's bothering them, really trying to show empathy, right? Like if it's something that made them feel scared, say like, yeah, that sounds like that was really scary
Mhm.
for you, or I'm sorry to hear that that scared you. Trying to check in on feelings with them, like how is it making you feel? Is it impacting your sleep at all? Is it impacting you in any other way? And really just trying to encourage that dialogue, because I think then that lets them know, okay, next time I can come to my parent with this. But if you like shut them down, or you minimize it, or maybe you don't have the energy in that second and you blow them off, they may not ever come back to you with that again. So I think how you respond and really trying to create that space where they know that they could say it to you and you'll try to at least be a listening ear, I think it makes a huge
Yeah.
difference.
And something, as you're talking, it goes back to West Indian, you're from West Indian parents. And one thing that I have discovered, um, not with my mother, to be honest, but I've discovered with other
Mhm.
people that I've listened
Mhm.
to, if I think, and then people are going to say this, you can't tell me how to raise my picnic.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't tell me how to raise my
yeah.
children. No, I mean, nobody wants to, but there's a way of doing things, right? Because
Right.
ignorance is
Yeah.
bliss. So, as you were saying,
Yeah.
and the child come, me, I didn't tell you, so you mustn't go on. You
Yes.
understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm
Right.
going in the patois. Me didn't tell you, boy or girl, no go on that.
Yes.
No, right? So the point of the
Yeah.
matter is, it's listening, being able to
Yeah.
breathe,
Mm-hmm.
pause, stop,
Right.
and
Right.
listen. Because if you don't, then you're
Yeah.
not going to know what's going on. And this is why a lot of times kids
Yeah.
get into trouble because they will not tell their parents because they're
Yeah.
fear of being judged. They're fear of getting a whipping, right? Whooping, whatever you
Yeah.
call it, whooping, getting into trouble. So it is so
Yeah.
much. Just parenting class. I think a lot of people in their parenting class, whether you're a good parent or not, because we don't know
Yeah.
everything.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I also think while you're talking, what kind of stands out to me is it's really the reaction, managing the
Mhm.
reaction that you give, even if it's, even if you feel angry or you have another feeling that's not
Mhm.
supportive, just give it a second. Like really trying to manage that reaction, because a kid can pick up on it, even like the subtle
Yeah.
reaction that you have. They will be able to read it because they're already nervous to tell you,
Mhm.
probably. So I find with the kids that I know that have that relationship with their parents where they can tell them things, they know that even if their parent doesn't agree with them, they're not going to react in a way that makes them never want to say anything again.
That's good.
You know?
That's good. So, in your opinion, should parents monitor their children's phones and social media? If so,
100%.
how? I agree with that. My daughter have restrictions for my grandson. There are certain sites he can't go on, and every kid
Yeah.
is different too, anyway. So, but
Yes. Okay, yes. Yeah, I would say age matters here, right? So if I'm thinking of like elementary school age kids, absolutely. I think everything they're on needs to be monitored completely. As you go into middle school, I would say yes. And I think this is where you may have to start to you have monitoring ability, right? Maybe you can check their phone at any time. Maybe you set limits on like I know Instagram has like a teen account thing. Like maybe you set those things up for them. Maybe you can always check their account, but maybe you're not over them every single day as you would with a child, right? So you're giving them a little bit more liberty. And then as you get to high school age, especially like 16, 17, right before they're becoming 18, I think again, you still should have some sort of control or understanding of what's going on, but maybe it's again not the over monitoring. And the reason I say that is just because I do think the opposite can happen, where if a parent is like overly monitoring an older child, what ends up happening is it either creates a more
yeah,
secretive kid or a kid that doesn't know actually how to manage that on their own when they do become an
yes.
adult. So I think having the balance of starting to give them more liberty while also still checking in and still having maybe some ability to, I guess control is the word, control how much time they're spending on it or what they're going
Totally
on.
agreed. My daughter and I, we read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. And one thing I enjoyed quite a few things in the book. But one thing she stated is that her parents rather, never overmanaged the children.
Hmm.
They did not believe in a set of rules. They believe
Hmm.
in guidance. So,
Hmm.
everybody have their own way of doing things. And what she meant by that is if they had to make a decision, they try to allow them to make the decision, but with guidance.
Right.
So they'll allow because they
Yeah.
trust them that much. And
Yeah.
I think just by
Right.
reading the book, there was really a trust that was built up between the parents and the children.
Hmm.
So children trust the
Right.
parents trust the children to make wise
Yeah.
decisions. And you can't do that with all children, but I think it starts
Right.
from young, you know. So if
Yeah.
you start to instill certain ideologies in your children when they're
Right.
small, trust me, train a child up in the way they ought to grow. You cannot wait until the tree is
Right.
big because then it's going to be too big to bend it.
Yeah.
But when we start with our
Yeah.
little ones and start saying, hey, somebody give you something, say thank you. They say thank you, say you're
Right.
welcome. That's a big pet peeve for me.
Right.
If you do something and you think you hurt someone else, say I'm sorry. All these little
Yeah.
things and so many things to teach children. Believe me, a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
It's all by itself.
Absolutely.
It's not just giving them clothes and shoes and food. There's so many things to teach them, so they become,
Yeah.
intelligent, productive adults.
Mm. Yeah, it's very true. And I think kind of like what you said, I think if you try to do it when the tree is full grown, like a lot of times parents are trying to work on these skills for the first time at 16. And I'm not saying it's too late, but oftentimes it is too late, right? Or it's going to take a much longer time. They're not going to be immediately ready at 18 or 19. It's going to take some doing now because they didn't get that ability when they were younger. So
And
yeah,
sometimes it's too late. Too late.
yeah. And sometimes it is. That's the sad. Yeah, sometimes it
What are
is.
some
Yeah.
practical family rules you recommend?
And around social media
I
specifically
think in
or in
general.
general? In general. Ooh, I don't think I've ever been asked that question.
Or you could base it around social media too.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if I'm thinking about social media and technology use, internet use, I think some good
Yes.
rules are time
Yes.
limits, right? I think going back to time is really important. And what that can look like is I think if you're just setting a screen limit or sorry, time for screen time or so limit for screen time, I think there also needs to be other things that are not screen time that they're
Mhm.
enjoying. So maybe you guys are going to the park together, right? Maybe that's something you guys do when the weather's nice or once a week when the weather's nice. Maybe you guys play board games. Like I think we need to bring back board games. They're very good, and kids still love board games. I have board games in my office, and of all ages,
Mhm.
they love the
Mhm.
board games. So having other engaging forms of doing things together that doesn't require technology is important. Um, I think rules around
Very
privacy matter,
important.
right? So the child
Yes.
knows what to
Mhm.
expect, right? So if you never check their phone and then one night you barge into their room and like, give me your phone, I need to check it now, that might obviously cause a different relationship between you and your child. So I think rules around, okay, like this is what you are allowed in terms of privacy, but these are the things that I will obviously be having control over or be able to monitor. So clear expectation, clear guidelines on privacy. I also think rules around what they can go on, like very clear rules, like you can go on these websites, you cannot go on these websites. And like we said before, explaining why. Um, yeah, I think those are maybe the main things that come to mind with
Another
rules.
thing that I discovered that my daughter told me that I did not know, and I think every parent should do it. Not because you think your kid is suicidal, but we live in a crazy world. There's an app that you can put on the phone that if the kid should put anything in there that does not sound
Mm,
kosher,
mm.
you are going
Oh,
to pick up. You know how many kids commit suicide, which is, that's
yeah,
like such a big thing
yeah,
in today's society. But
yeah.
there's a special app that if the kid, how you can go and search
Mm,
for different things, the parent would be
mm.
alerted would be notified
Mm.
that the kid is thinking or doing
Wow, I did
something
not know
that
about
was
that.
not, you know, appropriate.
That is really good. That's a very good option to have. And I think that's one thing that I think is great for more parents to know, is that there are ways you can have more control than you even realize. You don't have doesn't have to be you physically taking the device and manually going through
Absolutely.
everything, right? There's so many things like apps like that, or there's even just ways you could change the settings. Like if you have an Apple device, and let's say you have an iPad and a computer, all these stuff that the kid uses, you can have a way to shut it down at a certain time, all the
Yep.
devices at once, and you can have a
Yep.
password on it. So yeah, there's just so many ways you can also use technology to your advantage in
Just
terms
have to
of
be more
monitoring and keeping
firm
on track
and,
of everything.
strict,
Yeah.
stricter.
Yeah.
What should parents do when
Yeah.
their children repeatedly break digital rules?
Mm. Yeah, I think that's when consequences have to be discussed, right? So if they're repetitively doing it, maybe their access to it altogether needs to be removed for a certain amount of time, right? And again, I think that's something that should be discussed before, right? You want to plan for all of the things that could possibly happen, right? So I think parents sometimes try to figure out what they should do after the fact, whereas you can maybe come up with that rule and present that to your child from the beginning, right? So I'm giving you this
Yes.
iPad, but if you more than X amount of times, use it when you're not supposed to, I'm going to take it away for a week. Right. And each time you do it, it's going to be longer, whatever it is. Right. So I think having maybe some sort of rule around removing it altogether, or having some other
Sometimes you have to do
consequence, I
that.
think, for it.
And, I think
Yeah.
media plan, people should really have a plan. It's better than just relying on a
Yeah.
single universal screen time rule. You should really have a
Right.
plan in that regard.
Right.
So, what do you think? I'm
Yeah.
wrapping up now. What do you think they should teach?
Mhm.
Parents should teach their children about strangers contacting them online.
Yeah, it brings me back to the whole, like, when I was younger, it was the whole thing of like, if you're walking and there's a person in a car pulling up to you and they offer you
Yeah,
candy, don't talk to them. It's kind of like not scaring your child, but that was like
yeah.
the era I grew up in.
If they come with a
Um,
dog,
it made, you know what Right, right. Like, don't, like, stranger
right?
danger, pretty much, right? It's stranger danger, but the
Yeah,
online edition. And the online edition is really making it clear to your kids that someone may reach out to you, right? Especially the kids that play video games. That's a big thing, supposedly. They're playing games
hmm,
people they don't know. Really having that an expectation that someone may
yeah,
reach out to you. If they do, you should really encourage them to tell you, not to
hmm,
handle it themselves, right? Also trying to make sure that they know, like, they shouldn't engage with them, they shouldn't respond to them, they shouldn't talk to them. If somebody tries to ask them to, like, send them any
yeah,
information about themselves, like, don't tell them. If you don't know them in real life, do not tell them
absolutely,
anything about you. Don't send
absolutely.
pictures, right? Don't send money, anything, like just kind of finding
Or
ways
address,
to
do
make
not
sure that
give
they
them
know that
your
this is out
address.
there. Yeah, don't give them
School
your
you go
address. Don't
to.
let them know where you go to school. Yeah, none of that. So, like, it's stranger danger. It's like you see somebody in the store you've never met before, you don't know them. Don't tell them all the information
Absolutely,
about you.
absolutely. We have to grow
Yeah.
wise children in today's society.
Yeah.
How can parents help children develop strong values and boundaries? Boundaries is so important.
Oh. It kind of reminds me of what you were saying in your poem earlier, where a lot of stuff matter that are so much more than social media and technology and all these devices, right? Like your integrity, right? Like what matters to you, like really instilling them from young. What do they believe in? Like what makes them special and unique? Things that are unique to them that social media or technology cannot make or break, right? Really trying to instill that
Yeah.
from very young, very, very young, outside of that. So, like, whether it's
Mhm.
at nighttime when you're saying your prayers, or the bedtime routine with your kids, like really just doing that regular
Mhm.
reinforcement of the things that should be important to them. And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the last part of your
Oh,
question. Can you please remind
boundaries,
me?
strong values.
Boundaries. Yeah, I think boundaries that are important to have, kind of reminds me of the example that you gave with the I think you said the classmate who had a child who someone was like
Yes,
threatening to end
yeah.
their life if they stop talking to them. things like that, like reminding them what they're responsible for and what they're not responsible for when they're communicating with people, online
Yeah.
or in person. Really letting them know, like, this is social media, this is its own bubble, but it's not real life. That's something that I like to say a lot. Like, social media is not real life. If one day somebody unplugs the internet, if that could happen, it's gone.
Right.
It's not there. So it's not tangible. So it's real, it has real impacts, but it's
Yeah.
not real life, like real human life day to day. And so not putting everything into it, like making sure they have interests outside of social media and having limits for themselves. Like maybe they need to set limits for themselves on how much time they want to spend on there. Being very intentional, or being very aware rather, of how it affects them and how it makes them feel about themselves. So I think those are some things that come to mind in
And I
terms of
think children
boundaries.
too can really learn values from their parents because it's all about their
Yeah.
daily action, right? The way they treat other
Right.
people, the way they handle stress,
Yeah.
right? And the way they admit to the
Yeah.
mistakes that they make, right? It's all about
Right.
authenticity, and consistency, right? I think that is so important. It
Right.
matters more than trying to be a perfect parent.
Yeah. It's very true. It's very true. And I think even parents being mindful of practicing what they preach, right? Because if you're telling your kid, hey, you can't be on your device all the time, the reality is a lot of us adults are
Yeah,
just, we're
and you
here.
know the example.
Yeah. So understanding that
Yes,
they see you.
so
So,
so how important
yeah.
is modeling? I just said it. Do you think children pay
Yeah.
attention to how much their parents are on their own phone? Yes, they do. They
They
surely
do.
do. So how
Yes.
can parents teach
Yes.
children to think critically about what they see online rather than believing everything they see?
Mm.
Because I'm going to tell you, even as an adult, I'll see something and my grandson would look at me and say, Mommy, that's AI. It's not real.
That's the K divide for me, because the AI thing is gonna be a serious issue for a lot of people. It is. I see so much misinformation all the time, especially on Facebook. It's like, yeah. I think parents, like giving themselves
Uh-huh.
their own knowledge to spot signs of stuff that might not be fully accurate. Something that comes to mind for me is most social medias, let's say it's like a news item, most social media websites have like a verification check when something's like an authentic site. And that's most. I think some sites now let people buy it,
Yeah.
so it may not be true, but you can maybe see, like, is this page an actual verified
Hmm.
source? That's one way. When it comes to news and things like that. When it comes to other things, though, like mental health information being online, maybe having the conversation with your kids around the understanding that this might be information and it might be true, but it's subjective, right? A lot of it is not black and
Right.
white of, okay, I struggle with what this person is saying, that means I have this, right? So kind of understanding that there's the information and then there's how it applies to actual real life. And I think, again, what I was saying before about separating social media and real life. Social media is an outlet. It can be a way to connect with people. It can be a way to, just see other stuff that's going on in the world, but really trying to enforce another real life on your child, not just social media. So are they in sports? Are they in other activities? Do they
Yes.
spend time with their friends? Like other things, really trying to give them a full, enjoyable real life and not just
Yeah.
social media as their outlet.
And
I think
we're
is
not
important.
bashing it
Yeah.
all together because don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, technology has its place, right? It can provide
Yeah. It
incredible
does.
opportunities for learning and connection, but it can also
Right.
be challenging, right? But so
It
it,
can. Yeah.
we just have to know how we handle each situation, and that's it. Because
Right.
when you think of social media too, with the children today, with all the peer pressure and cyberbullying and how they
Yeah.
compare themselves with others. So that's the negative part of it.
Yeah.
But the good part is that they can indeed learn
Yeah.
things from it and it's being handled
Yeah.
appropriately.
Absolutely. I do agree. And I think something I would say, because while you were saying it, I'm just kind of, it's coming to mind now. I also think for certain ages, certain social media platforms are not appropriate, right? So I feel like personally, this is just my own bias. I think apps like Instagram are not appropriate for a child that's
Yeah.
not middle school or older. And the reason I say that is there's just too much information out there. And I think even if you try to make it where there's parental controls and there's certain things they can't see, like they could scroll and see anything. There's just too many things on there. So I think also like figuring out what stuff are age appropriate
Yeah.
for my kid, right? Instagram is one example, but I think a lot of the apps are not appropriate for certain younger children just because the content just may not need to be something that they're
Absolutely.
seeing,
Absolutely.
you know?
How do
Yeah.
we raise children to know that their worth isn't determined by popularity, appearance, or online approval?
Mhm. Wow, that is a hard one, right? Because I think innately in all of us, there's a desire to be loved and to be known and to be celebrated, right? And I think that extends beyond and before social media. But I do think social media poses a more bigger challenge with it just because it's at our fingertips now, right? It's something that we all feel like we can have because we have our social media platform and we're putting ourselves out there. I think parents can be, they can help their kids not to put their entire identity into it by really instilling what you're saying about values in them from a very young age. And I think it has to be younger than you think, right? Like 5, kindergarten age, even before that, really speaking these positive affirmations to them that they're beautiful, that they're loved, that they have worth. Like all of these things that might seem simple and that you might think your kid naturally knows, they maybe don't know. And then when they're going through those ages where bullying does become more common, where they are, naturally comparing themselves to their peers, really encouraging them to build that sense of self love. That's really important for them to have a sense of self worth and self love outside of what others are viewing them as. Because again, even without social media, this has been a long standing issue that humans have had. It really has to start from within. And as parents, it's instilling it in them constantly and is from as young as possible,
Absolutely.
I would
And,
say.
I'm
Yeah.
going to just say this that parents' social media habits do impact their children greatly because sometimes actually the parent and child does not interact the way they should. There's no interaction. I just found out that there's a name for this. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know about it. Technoference. Techno,
You said, can you repeat it?
technoference. Yeah, so
No, I
it's
haven't heard of that.
parent-owned
Wow.
digital habits. Techno, it's interfering with their interaction with their own children. Because even at the
Yeah.
dining room table, there are people eating and they're on their phone. You go to a restaurant, people are not having a dialogue. Everybody is busy on their phone.
Yeah.
So, we have to really do better
Yeah.
at being mindful that we're also creating a monster. So,
Right. Yes, that is so true. It reminds me of a story that someone on social media had posted about their child was trying to talk to them about something, and I guess they were on their phone, whatever, scrolling, and the kid had pretty much said, like, "Mom, you're not paying attention to me." And in that moment, she realized, like, wow, like my kid
yeah.
is really talking to me, but I'm just so busy with my phone. And I think it can easily happen because it's addictive for adults too. It's
Oh,
addictive for
it's
everybody. It's
for
made that way.
adults.
And so, yeah, yeah, we have to just be very, I think, mindful of it
And
ourselves,
it
like
can
you
be a
said.
learned
Yeah,
behavior. Because if I have a mom or
yeah,
dad that is always on it, hey, why not? So both of us are just
yeah,
scrolling, right? So where's the
right.
example? So the
Yeah,
parents have to
and
start setting better examples. They're complaining, but some of them are doing the same
yeah,
thing. So what advice would you give to a parent that's listening today about
about that. Yeah. Ooh, that's hard.
you're
Because
I
even me,
get
I
it, but
struggle
you're
with it
not, but
sometimes.
we're here trying to help
Yeah,
someone else, you know.
of
Yeah.
course. Of course. I would say you can actually set screen limits for yourself. There's apps where you can literally shut down social media apps after a certain amount of time. There are ways to do that. I would say setting limits for yourself, like being very mindful of your own habits. Like, are you typically scrolling when you and your child are at the table together? Are you typically on your phone all the time when you and your child could maybe be doing an activity? Do you tend to go to your phone as a way to de-escalate, and in that way you are ignoring or not maybe paying attention to your kid as much. So I think being mindful of your own habits and trying to set rules for yourself too. I think it's easier to maybe set rules for others than it is for ourselves, right? Like maybe we need to have a cutoff time. Maybe we need to have a set screen time limit for us each day. So I think that would be my tip, is being one, aware and mindful of it, and having rules and boundaries for yourself that you have to
Absolutely,
uphold.
absolutely. And I'll just end with this to say that raising children in today's digital world means guiding them through a landscape where screens, social media, and the internet shape their daily lives, shape the way they play, the way they, their social growth. So we as parents have to take the responsibility of being the loudest in their lives and not allowing social media to dictate our children's future. So we have to take the control back, right? We have to take back the control of raising our children and not allowing social media to raise them. So, with
Yeah.
that being said, I think it was wonderful having you on Empowering Woman. It was a great discussion.
Yes.
And I thank you so much for coming on. And
Yes.
I wish you all the best in all your endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. This was a very great discussion. I hope it was helpful to whoever
I
watches or
agree. And may
listens in the
God bless
future.
you, your
Yes.
family, and all the families out there. And may God bless America. See you later. These are just a few tips for parents from the show that we just recorded, Raising Strong Children in a Digital World. First step would be to have a tech-free zone. Keep phones out of the bedrooms and off the dining room table. If you go out to a restaurant to have dinner or brunch, whatever it is you're there for, keep your phones in your bags and have a meaningful conversation with your family. The second tip would be devise parking time. Turning in all tablet screens to a central charging station at a set time before bed. The third tip would be ask before downloading, and this is for children. Check with a parent before installing new apps, games, or joining platforms. Also, I would like to admonish us or encourage us to use a calm voice when we're interacting with each other. Address each other without yelling. Let's use our listening ear. Practice kind words. No name calling, putting down others, or intentionally insulting your family member. And those are the tips that I have for us today. I hope that helps. God bless you.